It's July the 26th, 2025. I'm Chris, and this is the future of photography.
The future of photography.
Hello, Jeremiah.
Hello.
Hi, Adrian.
Hello.
Hello. Why is on the video? Why is the join the Discord thing up? Anyway,
because we want people to join our Discord. That's why it's up there.
I just don't know why it's on by default. Anyway, this is me and technology. This is the future of photography, the podcast about future photography. It's in the title.
Okay,
come on.
What is this about? Okay.
What is this about? So
we're talking about the future here, but today we're going to talk about the past as well,
and what that might mean for the future. So anyway. Let's not be too cryptic here.
No, because time is amorphous,
especially in a medium that doesn't depend on being there when we record it. Anyway, too complicated. Adrian, you brought us a topic that I find really intriguing.
Yeah, so, this started off with just some inspiration from a feed, and I ended up finding myself watching a snippet from a video, a BBC video, actually, an interview, and it was about the things that happen post social media. It was kind of about the evolution of social media, but it was also about what happens afterwards, and it was called, why did our friends stop podcasting? Sorry, nobody stops podcasting. Apologies.
Podcasting is the big thing right now.
It is. It's always going to be there. Now, why did our friends stop posting on social media? And the conversation with a learned person with degrees from a place, talking about the actual proper research into the impact of social media and what's happening. And I found myself thinking what happens to photography after social media, right? So the interviewer in that particular thing, she said she had several children ranging from teenagers into their 20s, and she said her 19-year-old daughter just deleted all of her accounts and felt much better for it. But it occurs to me that for 10 years, at least, possibly closer to 15 years now, the vast majority of the future of photography has all been about, phones and has been, about social media and, posting and sharing online, and, all of that being a major driver in what has been an enormous explosion of the volume of photography. We can debate whether the quality has exploded with it or not, but I wonder what happens afterwards. Why do we take photos?
Okay,
Why do we make photos after social media?
So would you let me poke a few holes into the assumption that social media is going to end, or do we discuss this under the assumption that social media will end?
No, I think under the assumption that social media will change, be co-opted, and transform itself into another commercial media that is based on attracting attention and not necessarily information or quality or art or community, more important. So that's really
the thing I see with social media, that's just my personal experience, is that it is changing more from what I think we call a lean forward medium, where you're actively doing things, into a lean backward medium that's more like TV, more about consumption, more about curated contents. Look at shorts, look at TikTok and so on, where you don't really decide what you watch, you're just getting things presented to you. So social media is changing in some respects, and yes, the kids are deleting their apps. Yes.
Can I just harken back to a more fundamental base question? We can go back to MySpace, certainly.
Oh,
Facebook in its inception. But why do we post? I mean, that's the fundamental, initially. Social media was, at its inception, in my opinion, a way to create communities of like-minded people, family, organizations, etc., to share um, common or discover uncommon ways of approaching within one's trusted community, so that whoever posted would be then considered a trusted intermediary in that way. It was not one of those things filled with advertising. You were basically getting the feed of your friends, and the community was small. What happens is, have you heard of the 1,000 true followers that
That could finance you. Yeah.
yeah, if you have 1,000 dedicated followers in whatever media you are
Or
active in.
fans who would
Yeah.
be willing to spend for your products or for.
Yeah, and that kind of moves to, I mean, we can go back to Napster and all kinds of social progressions of media, but it was really about those fundamental 1,000. When people discovered that, went, oh, that 1,000 will turn into 10,000 because they'll tell their friends, and eventually I can become wealthy, an influencer, whatever, and it becomes about followers rather than media itself. Please discuss.
So that was the original idea of social media, and we all jumped on it, and we all had a Twitter account, and so on. And now, let's jump to the other extreme, which is the dead internet theory, which is it's a conspiracy theory that I think says that the internet isn't really like, there's not really people on there anymore, but it's all robots and all AI and all. I mean, that conspiracy theory, if you look it up on Wikipedia, goes much, much deeper and is much more like those up there are doing something to us. But there is some truth to that a lot of traffic on the internet is not human-made anymore. So
yes,
but that's the point, though, isn't it? And by design, it's going to get more automated as we get agentic AI, right? And this is not particularly a discussion about AI today.
No, it's not.
we'll
But
get there.
We'll get there, yeah. But the point is that the whole point that information is automated, right? So email, right? There's quite a lot of email traffic, and a lot of that is spam bots and things like that. But where do you draw the line and say what's human and what's not? I suppose if I send you guys an email, that's a human transaction, isn't it? But I think that it's good that the internet is got lots of automated traffic on it. What's perhaps bad is that a lot of it is spam directed at humans.
But Adrian, really, the question is, we've now transformed collectively, because of its popularity, the whole use case for social media. In other words, just speaking for myself, I like posting sketches and kind of ideas, whether it's pure photography, unedited photography, or AI work in combination, whatever it is, and by my followers. It's very interesting to see how the reaction is to various posts, and it just gives me maybe a leading indicator of the pulse of things within my community. And that's, I'm not obsessed with a zillion followers. And if I was, it would be to the commercial benefit of my gallery work or the price of my art or all of that. That's not why I use it. But it becomes increasingly more attractive to try and gain followers in order to build your commercial brand. And so when branding, that's your expertise here, Adrian, when branding comes into social media, it perverts it away from its original intention, which is shared space, community building, interesting interaction between real people. Now, I'm not adverse to being fed information and all kinds of idiosyncratic um, uh, content if it entertains me, but I don't want to delude myself into thinking this is a community of like-minded, shared individuals.
I mean, what we're seeing is that the feeds on doesn't really matter what social medium, they now boost the news, the pro influencers, more AI fluff out there, because that's more valuable when it comes to commercial value. Also, we see, I mean, just looking at the influencers on YouTube, a lot of high produced posts. So a lot of the casual users are sort of crowded out a bit, because how can you compete with that? And the feeds push more aspirational stuff, more lifestyle stuff, not necessarily the connection between people. That's what I see as a change, and that, of course, I think will have an influence on photography, especially on the photo industry. When we look at, for example, the kind of cameras we have, now we have a lot of social media optimized gear, a lot of cameras that are specifically made for vloggers. That will most certainly become less if the average person says, why should I? Because there's all this professional stuff out there and I cannot compete with that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, without a question, then you ask yourself, what am I doing here? What is the benefit to me? Am I learning something? Am I being influenced? Is this like walking into a museum? Instagram for me used to be, because I generally just I don't follow who's having what for breakfast. Never did, not interested. But if Martin Parr was shooting his breakfast photos, I would be interested.
Do you know, weirdly, you've named one of about 3 people that I actually follow on Instagram. I had to download Instagram a few weeks ago because my son has been on a school trip to the other side of the world, literally to the other side of the world. And the way that the school chose to communicate was through Instagram Reels, which is fine. Except I had to actually install Instagram on my phone and reactivate my account and stuff like that. Funnily enough, Martin Parr is one of a very few number of people I follow on Instagram, and now my son's school as well. But I found though, I couldn't make head nor tail of the user interface. I couldn't understand what it was trying to get me to do, what it was trying to get me to press on. These reels, right? I was trying to watch it. I got and some of them a bit. Imagine a group of school kids doing a thing, right? And so you get some stills pictures, you get some video of them doing their things, and it'd be flicking through as reels do, and I go, oh, there's the boy, right? I flick that, and I couldn't figure out actually how to even slightly rewind an Instagram. The user interface is impenetrable. Now,
You're just
I'm sure
dating yourself here.
totally, because I've not been on the platform for 10 years, and so I haven't felt the evolution of it, so it doesn't feel natural to me.
But that's with every platform that wants to attract people who want a bit of obscurity, so the old people don't figure it out.
Well, that's fine. And I accept that I am not necessarily the target generation for this stuff. But I literally couldn't figure out what the app was for, right? And it certainly wasn't for posting photographs and sharing in a community. So again, it reinforces this question, because you shared, Chris, and there's a link in the show notes to the Wikipedia article about the dead internet theory. One of the things that I picked out of that article is that they seem to define the internet as a very small proportion of what is actually the World Wide Web. Specifically the large social media sites, and of course, like all good conspiracy theories, it cites a particular government. In this case, the U.S. government. It makes me chuckle that whoever are the proponents and developers of this theory actually think that the U.S. government has more power than some other governments, for example, and that the U.S. is the center of the world. So forgive me, Jeremiah, if that's news, but.
Shocked. I'm shocked. The thing is, when you first come to these media, you really are inviting not only, quote, sharing of your resources, but looking for inspiration. At least for me, it was like visiting a museum daily. The people I followed, the people I chose, the interaction was like, wow, look at that image. Who's that photographer? Let me go deeper. And following those paths led me to and in some cases, personal relationship with other artists or galleries, museums, etc. Interacting now, I mean, there's not a day that goes by that I don't get a bot going, we're very impressed by your your feed, and for only $50 a month, we'll increase your followers guaranteed. And and every letter I get from different people is written exactly the same, so it's obviously bot controlled.
So let's assume, just for the sake of this argument, let's assume that the internet is changing, that social media are becoming less attractive to people because they don't give you that connection anymore. And so based on that assumption, I've thought about three different things. One is, what would that mean for the photo industry? And there's a few things that I think are gonna change based on that. What does that mean for teaching? Like photo workshops is part of what is my living. And what does that mean for photo podcasts? Because it's a form of teaching, but it's also a form of entertainment. So it's somewhere in between, I guess. Industry, the demand for again the social media optimized gear, that will probably shrink. I'm pretty sure of that, based on the assumption that the social media are going away. And I think the connection that people want, and what you see with the kids deleting their apps, I think that's a very strong argument for more personalized photography, stuff you don't share or stuff you share in very small groups. So we're talking more chat group kind of connections with other people. Less optimization for attention, more optimization for good photography, maybe more analog photography, because it doesn't have that instant sharing kind of thing built in, or it's impossible with it. So it's right along the lines of what the younger generation is feeling about when they think social media.
I mean, I've seen just in my own experience in the gallery world here, and certainly in Los Angeles, also New York, that there is a more focused demand for experiential situations where people actually physically come together and look at projected media and share
what imagery. A concept, totally new.
It's, in other words, being social for real. So I do see that yearning. I think maybe the fuse was lit during COVID, when people really were faced with isolation. But also, we know that our politics writ large and media writ large have isolated us in many, many ways. And I think the human condition may be starting to revolt against that and basically accept the yearning for physical, real social interaction for inspiration. Now, I could be wrong. Okay, boomer, what do I know? But my instinct is that whether it's photography, art, painting, even AI work, that there is common ground that we're trying to find, and we're not getting it anymore from electronic media.
So I see this, right, in my professional life, right, and COVID, I think, played a part in it. Jeremiah, I think you're right. There were those of us that went through the COVID years, as I did, at home with my family. Our lifestyle changed to be more family oriented, and whilst I now do enjoy going out, for work, I certainly wouldn't want to do it as often as I used to, right? Because I optimize, where I am. For what I need to achieve, right? But I do go into the offices of the company I work for, and I see younger people there, younger than me is what I mean, and they're there by choice, right? They're there to hang out and to get that social interaction. I think the COVID thing, as you're right, if you were part of a family group and you lived in a house where you had enough space, that you could move around and not be under each other's feet, that was a very different experience for COVID than somebody who perhaps was on their own in a small dingy rented flat or apartment, and couldn't get out and couldn't get any level of socializing or anything like that, and so depending on where you are in your period in life, perhaps, right? Yeah, I think the young adults got hit a lot harder in some ways through COVID than those of us who are of parenting age and what have you. So, but I do see it. I see, and perhaps not so much where I live, which is a small and quiet place, but certainly in my local big city, which is London, as we all know. There's lots of stuff that is organised now just for the turning up of it, right, and for the social aspect of it. I would love to do that. I would love to think that actually what we should all be buying, we should all be investing in printer companies, because people are going to print their photographs in the future and they're going to take them places and they're going to give them to their friends as postcards and stuff like that. I'd love to see that sort of thing. And people,
you mean UV printing, right?
Yeah, that was my thought.
I'm not sure that I can afford that, but whether it's actual Instax or instant photography, direct to film, or whether it's with the plethora of small printers that we all have various different versions of, that you can print your things and you can take them around pocket size or whatever, or even if it's big stuff, right? I'd love to think that there's a time when we actually know again, perhaps, how to share photographs with people. I feel like we're in a dead zone at the moment. When I logged onto Instagram in 2010, right, I knew the purpose of the Instagram platform. It was to share photographs and to have a conversation around photographs. 3 weeks ago, when I downloaded Instagram, I had no idea what was the purpose of the app. And that saying, if you can't tell who the mark is, you're the mark, right? And the politer version of that is, if you can't tell what the product is, you're the product, right? It felt very much like that. It was like, this app isn't for me, right? This app is not supposed to give me a good experience. This app is supposed to, its purpose is other than to give me, the user, a fulfilling experience, right? To the point where I couldn't work the user interface. I couldn't see anything of any particular value, right? Okay, I'm maybe the smaller proportion, the minority that has looked at social media and said, do you know what? Not for me.
Can I swing around back to what Chris was alluding to, in terms of the kind of different supports of the photography stool or bench? It's really about what happens to the amount of photography that is up there and will, in fact, maybe vanish, disappear, and not ever be seen again. I remember early days. This is when HP was a big computer company, and people were using HP and uploading their 300 by 800 bit photos. And it was all happening, and everyone was really excited about it. But there were no effective consumer based backup systems. And even though you could tell there were more photos being taken every day than ever before in the history of mankind. In other words, there was a record of our lifestyles globally being recorded, that the fragility of the backup systems were such that with any daily EMP, a lights out, a drive failure, all your photographs would be gone. Now, any of us who have experienced a drive failure, know that, like riding a motorcycle, it's either down or it's going down. I mean, that's the fact. And you have to prepare for that. But we, I think, collectively, I speak for all of us, are somewhat experienced and know this. So we have backed up. Friends of mine, some who've lost their homes in the Palisades fire, they did back up. Unfortunately, their backups were at home. And so there is that. Now, if you take that, expand it into the internet, whether it's social media or other, or just your website, and think of that as, quote, permanent, I think you're skating on very thin ice here, because as we'll kind of get to, there are pages after page after page that are dead links, 404s, and you can't get to them anymore. And I posit that we may be at a turning point where our recorded history that is considered viable and online won't be eliminated, but it'll be transformed in a way that it won't really retain the real aspect of what really was going on, because all of its nuances will have been rewritten, not unlike rewriting history generally.
That's all history looking backwards. You never get the whole picture because you weren't there. Exactly. Let me add one more aspect that is really going to touch me in some way, and that is the teaching of photography. Because if we see social media declining, or if we see that rate continuing, then I think that's a good thing for someone teaching photography, because it completely depends on the kind of photography you teach. When you look at let's say a lot of people. Why are a lot of people on social media? Well, a lot of them, especially the ones interested in photography, they want to become they want to become known. They want to become a professional internet poster. And if social media goes away, that decreases that motivation, because the deal doesn't seem so good anymore. So that, I think, would sooner or later shift shift the teaching to more the side of away from gear, away from all that, to more personal fulfillment, more artistic expression, craft for craft's sake, and not for external validation, because that's what we see social media as right now. So they are validation machines, aren't they?
Yes, and the way that it seems to be kind of working or growing is, once one cracks the algorithm, one then either generates by one's own talent or lack of it, or by using AI, bots, etc., to generate more and more outrageous work that doesn't come from anything outside of the intention of steering the algorithm to get more controversy. Controversy begets eyeballs. Eyeballs begets wallets. Wallets begets wealth. And so the whole motivation becomes absurdly quirky in terms of the aesthetic. Now, maybe we're just entering into that cultural aesthetic that is what it's going to be, and complain as we will. The true photographer, the true artist, the true teacher will have a narrower cast, a smaller group, a more intimate. Now, I know Chris has. We've tried many of the different photographic social media sites that have come and gone. And, one of the problems is, do you really want to get all your friends? Oh, you got to join this and you got to join that and you got to join. And I find it falls away because there's no satisfaction there.
Not just that, but also the realization that whatever you upload will be used for AI training. so that also demotivates a lot of people from sharing things because, yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean I'm not buying that because AI is going to train or generate stuff to train itself, like Xeroxes of Xeroxes.
Happening,
And
yeah.
And there's no stopping that.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter if you buy it because people think that way. A lot of people go, do I still want to upload my stuff onto the net and annotate it for the AI to fetch it and
do they? Because who would think that way? Because I think your average person taking photographs to share with their friends and on whatever platforms. I've not heard anybody, any of my friends or any of the people that I know say, I'm going to stop uploading my photographs to the internet because it's going to be used to train an AI.
This is extrapolating from a trend into when social media are going away.
Well, I can see that, but then one could say if you are presenting your work in any way, you are vulnerable. I mean,
yes, you are, of course.
So why fight it? If you go to art school, they're going to sit you in front of a Degas and say, sketch this, try and make it as close to it. Degas wouldn't be like, oh, this is outrageous. Somebody's copying my work to train other artists to copy me. I can't see that. Studying the poetry of E. Cummings, like try to write a style of poetry in E. Cummings or a haiku. We learn by osmosis in our cultural milieu. I think that's a positive thing. But when it becomes so focused on commercialization, where the motive is not to teach, but to exploit, that's when it becomes a perversion, I think.
I agree, and I think there's so many unknowns. I appreciate Chris trying to speculate on future trends because that's fun, right? But one of the unknowns for me is will humanity ever appreciate art made by artificial intelligence? Right,
yes.
Right now,
yes.
Right now, there seems to be quite a cynicism towards content that is created by artificial intelligence.
I'm going to totally push back.
Well, that's interesting as well.
Push back on that, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
First of all, creating art by AI that's not art. That's just prompting and image making. But to make a work of art, to create an artist out of it, you need a point of view. Without a point of view, you got nothing. So you need to create a body of work with a point of view. You can use AI to focus the attention on that point of view. That's number one. But with my own work, before you go down that road, I find over the last 2 or 3 years, my own work has been totally accepted by museums, not just galleries, but museums, in its embrace of early AI tools in making art. And I see the difference just in terms of invitations.
So I couldn't agree with you more. You may be disappointed to hear I couldn't agree with you more. Because the AI isn't the artist. The AI in that scenario, in your work, the AI is a tool that you are using and exploring for your own creative artistic endeavor. So you are the artist, not the AI. When we live in a world where AI trained on the internet is populated by further AI content, and the AI actually trying to independently of human intervention. who's it remains unknown to me how humanity as a whole will accept or reject that.
Well, I don't know, but I'm involved in a project that is based on training an AI, training an agent, basically, to have a point of view, influences, a historical bent, a lot of information, stylistically or not, and engage with that agent to make the agent the artist. And these are early days. It's probably subject for a show later down the line. But early experiments were, I asked it to do something. I uploaded a picture of myself and I said, transform this into the mood that I'm feeling now, melancholy. And so I started to engage. And the first image it made was an absolutely stunning, beautiful woman. Right.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
yeah. And then beat, it went, no, that it basically said, this is not what you asked for. This is, so it started to reason and analyze its own work and reject it, and then generated another and said, this is a little closer, but I'm still not there. After 2 or 3 of self-critique, it generated what appeared to be a very abstract Nordic muted color painting that really did feel that Nordic melancholy. And
Okay.
I thought, wow. And these are very early days with this training module and whatnot. And but it started to indicate that creating an AI artist, which is part of the the meta of this whole process, is something that I believe could transform art, how we see art, what is an artist, what is intelligent, and just how we look at expression, because everything in the artist is still inputted by mankind, right? So where does serendipity begin?
Interesting. Interesting. Slightly off topic, but
Well,
How do we get out of this now?
Well, I think
we talk about printing.
So I think we did, because we're postulating about the future of photography, right? And in the future of photography in a post-social media world, right? That means that there's different features of that world, and actually, if one of the features of that world is that AI is able to self-critique and be recognised as artists, there's a question there about what happens to photography at all. There's another question which is on my mind, which is, what do we do about discovery? Because discovery is a really big difficult problem, isn't it? So if actually the platforms that you would historically have used in the last 10, 15 years or so, used to discover stuff, if they're just full of junk and advertising now, you could possibly use them for inspiration still. Like, AI might generate art that provides inspiration to human artists, and you could get but actually, if I want to discover the Martin Parr of the future, right, but I can't follow him on Instagram because Instagram is just a scroll of adverts.
You need a trusted intermediary. That's all. You need to find someone you trust and use them as a conduit to branch out. And
so just picking something at random off my desk.
A magazine.
Well, but that's how that's how it's been for a long time, right?
Yes, and I look forward to it being back there.
That back to you, back to Chris teaching. Teaching is a way of creating visual opportunities for people to discover.
And in the post-social media world, our podcast will change as well.
Yeah.
Into, well, maybe not too much, because we don't really discuss gear that much, do we?
we do. We got our gear talks.
Every now and then.
But not in.
And sometimes we're really meta, like right now.
Yeah.
All right. What I'm looking forward to is a humanoid robot going out to take photography with an old film SLR. What a picture. What a picture.
All right. Nice? Okay. Yeah. Shall we talk about UV printing for a moment, just to follow that thread for those who have been following?
Just a very brief follow up onto our bashing the UV printer. I've just come across a thread on Reddit that was about the UV Make E1, that UV printer that everyone's talking about. And one of our points was the cost of this thing. And the one thing that we didn't really go into too much detail, apart from ink cost and cleaning cartridge cost, was the printhead. Because the printhead is apparently, someone posted from the UV Make Care FAQ. It's kind of like an Apple Care thing they sell, so you get some stuff repaired. One question out of that, and I'm only referencing the Reddit post. I have not really looked at the FAQ myself. Is the warranty on the printhead? The printhead has a 3-month warranty, and it is an expensive part. What we're looking at is, let me check. I think it's a $600 or $700 part. So with a 3-month warranty, that means absolute worst case, you'll have to replace a $700 part 4 times a year. Of course, they only honor that if you use their inks and so on. If you don't go third party.
I'm going to be just a little bit positive here, right? Warranty period is not the same as mean time between failures.
No, it's not.
Right.
But setting a warranty this short means they might know something that you don't know.
They're absolutely committed to 3 months. And by the way, anyone who remembers the term built-in obsolescence will remember. Of course,
what they want. Oh, by the way, it's a $599 part, so a $600 part. Of course, the UV Make Care service is $399. So that's what they actually want to sell you, which is a free printhead replacement, one free printhead replacement within the 12-month coverage period.
So probably you'll need 2 if you use it a lot. I'm just intuiting an average here, but it doesn't really matter. That's an additional cost that they don't advertise.
Yeah. So that's just one of another slightly reddish flag for me.
We look forward to Gen 2.
It's like buying one of those dodgy old internal combustion engine cars, isn't it? Where it has to go back to the garage every 6 months to have its filters changed because the design is 150 years old, right?
What an outdated concept.
Or
as opposed to a car that doesn't need servicing at all.
What about riding a Norton Commando? For those who were into motorcycles, you have to change the heads, the filter, everything. The engine had to be rebuilt every time you rode it. And the most fabulous motorcycle, but you had to want to play with it.
Anyway,
let us have a look at our picks. I'll bring up
just so you know, Chris, I changed my pick in the middle of the show, so if you pulled it up earlier, you need to go do it again. Sorry.
No, I just picked it up. Here we go. I have a podcast episode to recommend to you. It's the B&H podcast. Americans will know B&H. It's a big photo equipment seller. But they also have a podcast where they talk to photographers, and there is an episode out there about the Great Acceleration, Human-Altered Industrial Landscape, and they talk to Edward Bertinsky, photographer from Canada, and his photos are just mind-blowing. He goes out and takes pictures of industrially changed landscapes. We're talking mines. We're talking a big industrial machinery. We're talking pretty much
shipyards is one. I've got one of his books, which is
what humans do to our
ships.
surroundings. Yeah, so it's really interesting to hear his thoughts on things. He also talks about technique and how the whole thing. How this whole thing moved from large format photography, film photography, to medium format digital, to drones, and how he gets these photos. So it's an all round interesting discussion. Highly recommended. We'll link that in the show notes. All right, second up, visco capture. Visco, is Visco still around?
Yes.
So
They sent an email last week requesting
they did send an
that
email
I
last week. Yes.
upgrading or recapturing or paying them, whatever.
So, well, no, this is free actually. So they've launched a new app. I mean, Visco's been around for donkey's years. Yeah, reasonably famous for sort of subtle, ways
Filtration.
of adjusting your photos. Yeah, filtration of photos to perhaps give you a slightly more analog look, depending on your view of what an analog look looks like. This week they had, or a couple of weeks ago, they released a new app completely free. It's called Visco Capture, and it is a camera app. And it allows you to use quite a lot, like 50 plus of their looks or filters at the point of capture. You can capture like
that's where they came from, right?
Yeah.
Visco effects plugins. That was the first big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And so now you can do that at the point of capture. You can get it to save, the original alongside the processed version. So you've always got, you can work with raw files or compressed files, whichever you choose. I've only briefly started to play with it. I mean, it's a camera app, right? We've all got 20 of those, so in that sense, no surprise. But it's nice actually if you favour a subtle look and you just want to dial something in and just be, because I've always liked what Visco did as a set of filters or adjustments or what have you. There was
they subtle,
always seemed
beautiful
to be quite
taste,
thoughtful.
Nice, tasteful stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So good. That's my pick anyway. Play with that. It's free.
I love their halation. I always thought that a halation, there it is, adjustment. Always.
Oh, the image blooming, the
yes,
you
a
can
little
now
bit
dial
bloom.
this in.
Add a little grain and a little bloom, and it's really hard to tell that it's a digital image.
So 2 of the controls that they have in the camera are bloom and halation. Yeah. And you can adjust those at the point of capture, so you can play around with it and stuff like that, which is, it's cool, huh?
Love it.
All right. And then last but not least, Jeremiah, you brought us a really essential tool, the Wayback Machine.
Exactly. Much like looking through a telescope at the distant past, this is a much needed and has been around for a while archive of the internet. In other words, this is something that scrapes the net constantly and makes sure that these dead pages are alive somewhere. And it will be, I'm sure, if it continues to exist, like the Great Library at Alexandria, a real treasure trove for what has come before us on the web, and it goes back and back and back. It's a great resource for historians, for cultural students, and for those of us who are interested when we hit a 404 on a website that should be there. So again, you can search collections, you could find that page, and when people post something that is horribly embarrassing, it lives forever.
So they say they have archived over 946 billion web pages over time, and very important, right next to their logo there is a donate button, and that service is at least partially financed by donations, and I've used it often. So you can donate one time or monthly, choose the amount, pay whichever way you want to, and I think it's worth keeping that thing alive and helping to keep that.
Yeah, it may be the last vestige of our internet history at some point. I mean, who knows? Oh.
Yes.
So you can look back at the internet when it had truth on it and facts and stuff like that.
I don't remember that.
All right.
Oh, okay.
I think that was it for today. You can find us and more things at thefuturephotography.com. Join our Discord. Link is in the show notes. And if you're listening to this, hey, watch our videos. You can look at our mugs and maybe enjoy that. Someone wrote as a comment on a short, and I found this really interesting. It looks like it's the same person, just at 3 different ages. Now, I'll leave this to the listener, to the viewer, to determine who's the youngest of us. I think we know who the oldest is, but who's the youngest of us? All right, everyone, thanks for being here, and we'll be back soon with more. Until then, take care, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to The Future of Photography. Join the discussion on our Discord, find the show notes and all episodes at thefutureofphotography.com, and subscribe wherever you listen to audio.